starting this presentation out today. Take it away, Jordan.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Great. So my name is Jordan Palmieri. I work in the Green Building Program at the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. And it's my pleasure to have you all here today. It looks like a great turnout for a Friday afternoon, and it's pretty sunny out there, so thanks for coming. The main event today is the presentation of Martin and Taylor's research on appraisals and ADUs. The Appraiser Research Foundation paid for the research, and rdboregon.com provided a grant of services to the research. Today's presentation is sponsored by Green Hammer and Hammer in Hand, and it's hosted by Metro. So thanks to all the sponsors involved in both today's event and the research. One of the fun things about today is that none of us actually know the results of the research yet either. Just a couple hours ago I was printing off some of the executive summaries of the paper, and I just read it for my first time. And so, like Bryce said, there's a sign-in sheet in the back, plus there's also an executive summary of the study if you want to get in touch with the authors. So I'm going to begin today with a short, about 15-minute overview of just general ADU issues in Oregon right now. And then we'll hear from Martin and Taylor for a little while, and then open it up for general discussion. Just to get a sense real quick of who we have in the audience, and if you could just show of hands would be helpful. How many appraisers do we have here? Okay. Real estate agents / professionals? Okay, great. Anybody in financing or banking? Okay. And then what about builders, contractors? All right, architects? Okay, and there's some government nonprofit folks? Great. That seems like a pretty good mix. All right. So today, for my 15 minutes, I'm going to go over some ADU basics, some of the incentives that are out there and available today, and then cover some of the resources to leave some of you guys with. So we're all on the same page. Let's first start with what an ADU is. So an ADU is a secondary dwelling unit on a residential lot. It's as simple as that. Most things that define an ADU is the fact that it has a kitchen. So you can make an ADU by converting your basement, converting your attic. You could build an entirely new structure, or you can convert an existing structure, part of a garage or a bump out of a house. We'll talk a little bit about where ADUs are currently allowed through zoning regulations a little bit later. And one of the reasons I'm up here today is because in the Green Building Program we do research on the environmental benefits of different green building practices. And this chart shows something that we all know already, that bigger houses use more energy, use more materials, and generally use more resources. They also cause more greenhouse gas emissions, which is associated with both material consumption and energy consumption. So the metric here is greenhouse gas emissions, and we have houses that range from 1,100 square feet to 3,400 square feet. This is the greenhouse gas emissions that result from a 70-year life cycle from each one of these homes. Earth Advantage did all of the energy modeling on this work using the REM-rate tool, and we, with other folks, and another consultant, did all the materials modeling. So this is the greenhouse gas emissions from different size homes. But we at DEQ still wanted to know, well, how does the benefit of, let's say, reducing house size from 2,200 square feet to 1,600 square feet compare with other green building practices? So what we did was looked at a few others, and what I'm going to add to the graph here is that these are the same different size homes that we saw in the other chart. Smaller home, less greenhouse gas emissions. Bigger home, more greenhouse gas emissions. The question was, how do other green building practices compare? So what I'm going to do is add staggered stud framing and a double wall construction, both on 2,200 square foot homes. When we look at the chart, we see a 2,200 square foot home built to code. This is 2008 energy code. Has a certain number of emissions, and then when you improve the wall system, you're going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which is great. Then we went even further and said, well, what about an Energy Star home? We're going to have better windows, we're going to have better insulation, we're going to have more air tightness, so on and so forth. Same size, 2,200 square feet. We do reduce greenhouse gas emissions by even more. But look over here. The smaller home, which is really a 25% reduction in size, it's a 1,600 square foot home versus a 2,200 square foot home, has even more environmental benefits over its life cycle. So the point here is that size in and of itself and size reduction is a really effective green building practice. It's right on par with all of the other things that we get points for in all the different green building rating systems that are out there today. This is not to say that energy efficiency and good wall framing techniques are not important. This next one I'm going to add to the chart is an 1,100 square foot home. This one is a 1,100 square foot home built to code. And then I'm going to add a green certified small home, which is the same size home that we designed and built to LEED Platinum and Earth Advantage Platinum standards. So we threw a bunch of energy efficiency bells and whistles of it, and you say that within the same size category, you can further reduce emissions. So the point here is that once you've chosen your size, clearly more energy efficiency is still a good way to go. So now that we know small is really an effective strategy from an environmental perspective, the question is, what about social aspects of small houses? What sort of role are they or are they not filling in society? Well, one thing we see is that households are getting smaller in the U.S. This is a chart taken from City of Milwaukee. They recently opened up their zoning code in Milwaukee, and they're looking at both how the actual households in Milwaukee are matching the types of housing units that they have there, and how they can change their zoning code to help fit that the types of households. And what you'll notice here is that the majority of households here are single person or single parent households. So they're either one or two person households, or the majority of the households in Milwaukee. This is the city of Milwaukee in Oregon. This is going to be the same thing that's true for the state of Oregon and for the country as well. And so this used to not be the case at all. We used to have the majority of households here be married with children. And in fact, right now, they're in the minority. So our society is changing, our demographics are changing, and the question is our housing stock changing with those demographics to match them? And it isn't. Our housing size has increased dramatically over the last 60 years. The average house size of newly constructed homes in 1950 was about 1,000 square feet, and in 2005, it was about 2,500 square feet. So house size is going up dramatically, and the number of people we put in our homes is going down. I should note that 2008 was the first year ever in U.S. history where the average U.S. home size actually went down, and clearly that's related to the recession. So, one other social stat is that we have the population of seniors in our society is growing rapidly. I just went to an AARP conference a few weeks ago and presented on the role of accessory dwelling units for aging in place. AARP Oregon is a great resource, and they have lots of surveys that say, you are aging and you are retiring, what do you want out of your retirement? Most people want to age in place, and they want to be close to transportation, they want to be close to services, they want to be close to family and care. And these are the sort of stats that show us that in the next 10, 20, 30 years, our older population is going to increase dramatically. So again, how will our housing stock meet that need? The last thing I'll touch on about the advantages of smaller homes are the economics. Oh boy. It was water. It was waterproof carpet. Thanks, sorry about that. I'm really excited about this economics slide. So in, I guess, April 2010 or something, the city of Portland waived all system development charges for accessory dwelling units within city limits. That's about a $7,000 to $12,000 savings for homeowners. And this is a little copy. Thanks, Bryce. This is a little copy of the resolution that passed City Council. And one of the lines was, whereas ADUs are integral to the achievement of cities' affordable housing and density goals. ADUs have been touted as being, affordable housing solutions a lot. I am not an economics expert nor an affordable housing expert, but I've seen a wide range of ADUs, some more affordable and some a lot less affordable. I think Martin and Taylor will maybe touch on this a little bit more today. One resource that I'll lead you to is a great blog that's been up and running by a gentleman named Peterson, who's here today in the audience. And he built an ADU on his property and has blogged all about the experience, and one of the only blogs I know about from a homeowner's perspective that really details a lot of the economic decisions he had to make. In this case, his ADU cost him about $100,000 to build, and given rental income, he's projecting about an 8-year return on investment for this particular property. He's also realized that there's a gap in the homeowner education, and is now holding ADU classes in his ADU home. And so visit the website if you want more information about some of that. And again, I think Martin and Taylor will touch a lot more on the economics of ADUs. So the question is, where are ADUs allowed in Oregon? This information source, this is from DEQ. I put this data together, and this is incomplete. I have not gone through every city in the state yet to figure out if they allow ADUs. But here are all the cities that do allow ADUs right now, and it roughly covers about 50% of our population in the state. The most notable city not on this list, you probably can't see it. Does anyone have any guesses?
Beaverton.
Salem. None other than our state capital is not on the list. And so if anyone has friends in Salem, maybe it might be time to get ADUs allowed there. I called their zoning department to figure out what the deal was, and they said they were working on it. So I think that's a time where activism really helps when planning departments hear that these are things that want to be built. So that's kind of the picture in Oregon about ADUs. Let's talk about a little bit some of the incentives that are out there right now. Again, I mentioned SDC waivers. Portland has an SDC waiver until June 30th, 2013. I certainly hope that that waiver continues. Wilsonville did the same thing, but they permanently instituted a waiver, so you don't have to pay SDCs at all forever in Wilsonville. The question is, what is the effect of these incentives on permits, on the number of ADUs actually being built? So let's take a look at City of Portland permit stats. Sorry for the small print here, but what this is showing in that in 2009, before the SDCs were waived in the City of Portland, there were 36 ADUs constructed in that year. After the SDCs were waived, the number of ADUs doubled. There were 70 ADUs that were constructed in the following year. So it is effective. These SDCs may not have been the deciding factor for every single one of these ADUs, but it certainly helped. And there's one more incentive I want to talk about that will also, in my opinion, hopefully help increase the number of ADUs seeking permits. And that's a new incentive by the Energy Trust of Oregon. In the past, the Energy Trust of Oregon New Homes Program did incentivize accessory dwelling units. On new construction, if you built an ADU to the same level of efficiency as the main dwelling, then you received a $200 incentive. Now this has recently changed within the last couple of weeks, and this is a picture of actually Cole Peterson's ADU, and he built a detached ADU on a lot with an existing house, and Energy Trust looked at the application and ended up treating it as an entirely separate single-family residence. And what this in effect does is that all ADUs that are detached, whether it be new construction or on an existing lot or a house, are now treated as single-family residential lots and are eligible for full Energy Trust incentives. This is really good news. So that $200 incentive that used to be the case, in this case Cole got a $1,700 incentive, and his ADU, correct me if I'm wrong, is about 30% above code?
Yeah.
Something like that. So that gives you a sense of the incentives available. And again, these are only incentives for building above code. That's how Energy Trust incentivizes them. And so I'll just go over the details of it right here. The ADU must have its own, to receive full ETO incentives, the ADU must have its own mailing address, it must receive an energy performance score, It has to have its own third-party verification. These are standard practices for energy trust. The ADU must be detached from the main residence. So at this point, you can't receive this incentive if it's a basement ADU or an attic ADU. There's a lot more complications in that because it crosses over with their existing homes program, and I know that they're going to deal with that in the future. The ADU must be intended to use as a residence, and it must be a detached structure, and it must be permitted. And the builder or owner builder must be a trade ally with the new homes program. And I'll say two things about this. Number one, thank you Energy Trust for seeing that this is an incentive that's both justified and will hopefully help not only the building market but the ADU market. And there's two things that I would reflect on here is that I think with existing homes, and this is a home here that was built well above code by Hammer and Hand that was on the Build a Green tour that, unfortunately didn't receive these incentives because it had been built previous to it. But what I think will happen, hopefully, is that ADUs built on lots with existing homes, I think will have much more of a reason to seek above code energy improvements now that this incentive is available. I don't necessarily think it's going to increase the number of ADUs built on lots with existing homes, but rather it'll increase the efficiency of those people that choose to do that. The difference, and then you look at new construction. This is a development by Lewis and Clark Homes. It was an infill development in Selwood, where there are two of those Portland skinny homes built, and then in the back there are two accessory dwelling units. This guy is aiming for LEED Platinum for the main houses, but the ADUs in back are just built to code. What I think, and I hope what will happen, is that there will be more types of developments like this, new construction that already incorporate accessory dwelling units into that new construction. And by doing that, you're essentially going to get double the incentives on one lot. If you get $3,000 worth of incentives for your main house and you build the ADU to the same level, then you'll get that same amount for the ADU. So clearly the incentives versus the cost of the ADU is a better ratio than when you look at the main residence. So that's kind of what's coming up in the incentive world. So real quick on some work that's going on, there's a space-efficient housing work group that I coordinate. And really all this is a bunch of people that got together and say, we want to see more space-efficient housing, which includes things like accessory dwelling units, cottage housing, things like what I call density-driven remodels, taking bigger, older existing homes and dividing them into more units. And the question is, what are the barriers to these types of developments? All the folks on this group, and there are many others that I didn't put on here that have been interested in and maybe have attended a couple meetings, say we want to see smaller housing units for environmental, social, and economic reasons, and we think there are benefits. How do we get more of it? And so this group got together and brainstorms a lot of the different things we can do, and one of the biggest barriers to, in this case, accessory dwelling units we found was financing. And that's the main topic for today, and I think these guys will address quite well, is how to get over the financing barrier for ADUs. Some upcoming events that this group, the Space Efficient Housing Work Group, is helping to host is a Space Efficient Housing Tour in conjunction with the Living Future Conference, which is put on by Cascadia Region Green Building Council. That's happening May 2nd, so we're going to have a half-day tour of space efficient housing. And then finally, we're thinking about having a space efficient housing summit in late May. And the purpose of this would be to increase both the supply and the demand for this type of housing. The last thing I want to touch on is another product that's come out of the Space Efficient Housing Group is a website specifically dedicated to accessory dwelling units. This is intended to be the one-stop shop for ADUs. And at this point, I'm going to turn it, there are three main people that are helping to develop this particular website. One is Eli Spivak, Cole Peterson, and Martin Brown. And I'm going to hand it over to Eli for 1 minute, and then we're going to introduce the speakers today and get started.
Thanks. So I'm Eli Spivak. I've been working on really small homes for a while as a general contractor and built some of them, and Saving Green's one project for my company, Orange Plot. And the people Jordan just mentioned, one of the obstacles ADUs is people don't know that they're out there, because like green roofs, they're kind of discreet, and usually they're really charming, but you can't necessarily see them. So a couple years ago, I led a couple Pedalpalooza bike tours with many homes, had like 100 people each. And it was a chance for people to see a lot of these homes that they wouldn't even notice. They might be in their own neighborhood. And so we're trying to do some work both with this website to share the stories. People don't necessarily want to have 80 people tour through their house, but maybe they do want to share the story about it for people to see and get inspired by. And we're also looking for people who know of little homes out there. We toured a couple dozen homes last time, and we'd love to get some more for tours this coming spring. So this is my pitch that if you are interested in sharing a story, you know about some cute little home, and I don't really care if it's permitted or not, frankly, although thumbs up to people who do permit them. So let me know about it. Go to the website. We've got a couple survey forms. Lynn has an intern working with me to help get a catalog of all the homes out there in Portland. And if you'd like to share a story on the website, we'd love to we're already getting some little contributors. That'd be great. And also, for those people who want to stay in touch about advocacy work, I worked with a group a couple years ago to get this SDC waiver changed and also change the size requirement for ADUs. But the city's entering into a comprehensive plan process pretty soon, so there will be more opportunities to try and influence city code to make it easier to build space-efficient homes. So if you're interested in that advocacy kind of work, get in touch with me too. Thanks.
Thanks, Eli. And I just want to remind folks that there is a sign-in sheet in the back, and there's a couple boxes to check if you're interested in receiving more information on really any of the stuff that I talked about today. All right, so let's get to the main event. I'm going to introduce Taylor and Martin. Taylor Watkins is a certified residential appraiser and the president of Watkins & Associates, a Portland-based appraisal firm. Watkins & Associates has specialized in data collection and appraisal of green properties in the Portland area for over 7 years, providing valuation for individual properties, appraisal, consulting services, as well as market research and analysis of green-built properties. Watkins is also the president of greensitevalue.com, an online education and data resource center on green valuation for the real estate industry professionals that is currently in development. Watkins has developed a series of continuing education courses on appraising green residential properties that is the first of its kind in the nation. And he is also the developer of the Appraisal Institute's new Introduction to Green Building course. Martin Brown is a writer and researcher specializing in environmental and historical topics. He likes asking good questions and answering them with clear analysis and dogged reporting. His work has been published in both peer-reviewed journals like American Naturalist and popular magazines like Sierra, Alternate, Make, Air and Space Smithsonian, Good, and E, the environmental magazine. He also co-authored the book Knit Along, a study of the social aspects of craft. So with that, I'd like to introduce Martin and Taylor.